the thought that I said out loud. Your Newark flight GH422?
Yes, my name is Vanessa Gordon.
And I am Samson Gibson.
Okay.
In September, Hollywood shimmered beneath a deceptive golden light. That strange season when glamour collides with exhaustion. When every glance on a red carpet feels like both a promise and a trap. Flashbulbs exploded like miniature suns outside the Regent Beverly Ballroom, where stars in designer gowns moved like gods among mortals, their laughter carefully curated, their intimacy measured by camera angles. The air smelled of perfume and ambition, and in that glimmering haze, a single photograph was born. One that would ignite weeks of chaos, heartbreak, and speculation, and force Dakota Johnson to make one of the most difficult decisions of her life. The moment was fleeting, barely noticeable among the hundreds of candid snaps taken that night. Sam Heughan, tall, magnetic, smiling faintly, leaned toward his longtime Outlander co-star, Caitriona Balfe, who stood close, the faintest hint of tired tenderness in her expression. His hand rested gently on the small of her back, her face tilted towards his as if catching a secret meant for her alone. No kiss, no scandalous act. Yet the light, the framing, the tension between shadow and exposure, all conspired to tell a story that the world wanted to believe. Beneath the headline, "A Midnight Embrace That Changes Everything," the image was published by Hollywood Flame, and within hours, it was everywhere. Gossip blogs, news feeds, Twitter threads dissecting posture, hand placement, micro-expressions. By dawn, Sam and Caitriona weren't actors in a candid moment anymore. They were symbols of temptation, betrayal, and blurred lines between fiction and reality. Thousands of miles away, London was gray, cold, and indifferent. In a penthouse suite near Notting Hill, Dakota Johnson sat by her window as the morning light crawled reluctantly across the skyline. She had been filming a new project, a dark romantic drama, one that demanded emotional vulnerability, but nothing in the script prepared her for. The quiet implosion that began when her assistant brought her a cup of black coffee and said softly, "Miss Dakota, you might want to see this." First, she didn't understand. Then she saw the image, the article, the hashtags, #SalmonCat, #OutlanderChemistry, #CaughtAtMidnight. It wasn't jealousy that hit her first. It was disbelief, a hollow stillness that spread through her chest. She didn't cry, didn't throw her phone, didn't curse. She just sat there, zooming in on the photo as if clarity could be found in the pixels, as if the truth might reveal itself between their smiles. Sam, why her? She thought, her fingers trembling slightly. She knew the history, everyone did. For years, fans had obsessed over Sam and Caitriona's on-screen chemistry, writing fanfiction, analyzing interviews, even creating conspiracy theories about their supposed secret romance. Both actors had always denied it gracefully, calling each other family, laughing off the gossip. Dakota had never doubted Sam, until now, because that photo didn't look like family. It looked like something unspoken, something intimate, something that dared the world to look closer. Across the ocean, Sam Heughan was waking up in Beverly Hills, blissfully unaware that the storm had already begun. The sunlight broke through his hotel curtains, his phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. His assistant, pale and frantic, burst into the room. "You're blowing up online, Sam. That photo of you and Caitriona last night. It's everywhere." Still half asleep, Sam frowned. "What photo?" he muttered, grabbing the phone, only to see his own face staring back at him from the screen. His hand on Caitriona's back, her smile soft, the caption insinuating everything that wasn't true. His stomach sank. He knew exactly how bad it looked. Before he could process it, his phone rang again. Dakota. He hesitated, then answered. Her face appeared on screen, composed but cold, her eyes distant. "You saw it?" she asked, her tone level but unnervingly calm. "Yes, but Dakota, nothing happened," he stammered. "It was just a party. I said something to Kat." She laughed. We hugged for a second. "It was a bad angle?" she interrupted. "Because I've seen that defense before." Her voice was quiet, almost tender, but edged with exhaustion. "The problem isn't that I believe the press, Sam. It's that I'm starting to wonder if I can still believe you." There was a pause, a long silence in which neither could hide. They had been together for almost 2 years. A relationship born quietly, nurtured away from cameras. It wasn't a Hollywood romance of fireworks and statements. It was something quieter, built on mutual respect, shared humor, long-distance calls that lasted until dawn. They had promised each other honesty. Yet now, through the fractured lens of fame, that honesty was under siege. Sam tried again, explaining how he and Caitriona had always been close, how rumors had haunted them for years, how this was just another false narrative. But Dakota had heard it all before. Not from him, but from the industry itself. She had grown up in Hollywood, watching how proximity and perception could destroy even the most innocent moments. "I know what it's like," she said softly, almost to herself, "to be misunderstood. But I also know what it looks like when someone's heart has already shifted, even just a little." And with that, she ended the call. 3 days later, the storm hadn't subsided. It had evolved. Every entertainment outlet had dissected the photo heard around the world. Think pieces analyzed Dakota's silence, tabloids speculated about secret rifts, and old interviews between Sam and Caitriona were resurrected as supposed proof of an affair. In Beverly Hills, Sam's publicist advised him to stay quiet until it dies down. But the quiet only deepened the mystery. Caitriona, meanwhile, sat alone in her hotel suite, staring at her reflection. Her career had always been marked by professionalism, grace, restraint. She knew how fragile reputations were, how quickly public affection could turn to accusation. She thought about Sam, about how many years they had spent working side by side, surviving the emotional intensity of Outlander, a show that blurred the lines between performance and reality. "It was just a hug," she whispered to herself, as if saying it aloud could make it harmless. But deep down, she knew that in Hollywood, perception is reality. Dakota, meanwhile, withdrew from the noise. She stopped answering calls, stopped scrolling. She began taking long walks along the Thames, where the chill autumn air offered a kind of clarity. For years she had balanced life between love and career, but now she found herself confronting something deeper. The quiet truth that in a world where everything is visible, trust has to live unseen. That photo had not just wounded her pride. It had forced her to question how much of her heart she could afford to give to someone whose life was built on public imagination. Sam called, texted, even sent a handwritten letter, pleading for a chance to explain. She read it, then placed it in a drawer. "I don't hate you," she finally texted, "but I can't keep defending a story I didn't write." Weeks passed. The frenzy eventually shifted to other scandals, as it always did. But for those involved, the ripples remained. Sam threw himself into work, filming long hours, smiling through interviews where he was asked about the photo with forced good humor. Caitriona issued a polite statement. "Sam and I have been close friends and colleagues for years. Anything beyond that is pure speculation." Yet beneath the surface, their friendship carried a weight it hadn't before, the awareness of how one moment of closeness could upend everything. Dakota, meanwhile, finished her film and quietly moved out of the shared house they had once planned to make a home. She told friends she needed space, time, perspective, but in truth, she had already made her decision the moment she saw the photograph. Months later, at an awards ceremony in Los Angeles, the three of them would cross paths again. Cameras flashed as Sam and Caitriona walked the red carpet together. Purely professional, purely cordial, while Dakota, radiant in silver silk, arrived alone. There was no confrontation, no drama, no whispered accusations. Just a nod, a shared glance heavy with history. Hollywood applauded their poise, their maturity, unaware that beneath the surface of composure lay three hearts that had learned, in different ways, how fragile truth becomes when the world is watching. The photo that once seemed like a scandal had become something else entirely, a mirror reflecting fame's cruel paradox. How one frame, one gesture, can distort years of truth. In the end, Dakota's decision wasn't born from jealousy or anger, but from clarity. She understood that love in Hollywood is not just a private feeling but a public performance. and she refused to keep performing something that no longer felt authentic. She once told a friend, quietly, over coffee in Notting Hill, "Sometimes the universe doesn't end things cruelly. It just shows you who you've become." And as for Sam, he carried the guilt of that night like a ghost. Not because he had betrayed her, but because he had underestimated how fragile trust becomes under the lens of fame. Years later, he would still remember that photograph, the half-light, the half-smile, and the moment when everything, love, fame, truth, blurred into one. For in Hollywood, stories are rarely what they seem, and sometimes the smallest gesture, caught by a stranger's camera, becomes the ending no one saw.
Take care of them and help them through the time. And it's kind of a tumbling over time of the years in their relationship and with their friend. And
Caitriona Balfe had just completed a high-profile magazine photo shoot when the weight of the scandal began to settle on her shoulders. Her face, flawless beneath the soft light of the dressing room bulbs, betrayed nothing of the turmoil she felt inside. But her eyes, sharp, alert, and restless, revealed what her perfectly curated expressions could not. She knew, perhaps better than anyone else, that the infamous photograph was no accident. That moment at the awards show after-party, a fleeting whisper, a gentle touch, a shared glance, was a scene taken wildly out of context, yet filled with unspoken emotion. The after-party had been lively, crowded with producers, co-stars, and media executives. Laughter and champagne flowed freely, and for a brief moment, the exhaustion of long shooting days melted into nostalgia for what the Outlander years had meant to both her and Sam Heughan. Nothing inappropriate had happened that night, of that, she was certain. But she could not deny that her eyes had lingered too long, that the warmth in Sam's smile had carried a hint of longing, or that when his hand brushed against her back, she hadn't moved away as quickly as she might have. That was the truth she couldn't say aloud. That their connection had always hovered in that fragile space between deep friendship and something dangerously close to desire. And now, that silent tension had become public currency, dissected by gossip outlets and social media analysts who treated human emotion like an open dissection table. A week later, as headlines continued to feed on speculation, both women found themselves at the heart of a media storm. The talk show Hollywood Voices, famous for stirring celebrity confessions, invited Dakota Johnson and Caitriona Balfe for a joint interview, a ratings dream that neither woman wanted to grant. Yet, surprisingly, Dakota accepted. Her PR team was horrified. Every media strategist begged her to decline, to issue a written statement instead. But Dakota only said, "I'm tired of being silent." Her voice had a quiet authority that silenced the room. Sam, filming in the gray chill of a Canadian countryside for his new project, received the news mid-scene. He stood in silence after the call ended, the wind biting at his face. For the first time in years, the man who had built a career on charm and composure felt powerless. The situation was no longer about an image or rumor. It had become a reckoning between truth and perception. The studio lights on the day of the broadcast were merciless. 2 chairs stood less than a meter apart, separated only by tension. Dakota sat on the left, her black dress stark against the silver stage, her hair flowing freely down her shoulders. Simple, elegant, but guarded. Caitriona sat on the right, immaculately dressed, but there was fatigue in her eyes, a rare fragility beneath the poise. The host, all smiles and artificial warmth, opened the show with a tone of theatrical sincerity. "We're so grateful to have 2 extraordinary women here to share their truth," she said. But the air was thick with unspoken hostility. When the host turned to Caitriona and asked, "What did you think when that photo hurt Dakota Johnson?" the silence that followed was sharp enough to pierce through the applause. Caitriona inhaled deeply before answering, her voice calm but trembling at the edges. "It was a moment taken out of context. Sam and I share a long history, years of working together, understanding each other's quirks and silences. But I never intended to cause pain. Not to Sam, and certainly not to Dakota." Dakota, her face still and unreadable, didn't look at her co-star. Her tone was quiet but piercing when she finally spoke. "It's not the photo," she said. "It's the pattern. Every time they appear together, the world starts whispering. Every time they share a moment, people begin writing stories that never end. She turned her gaze to the camera, her eyes steady and reflective. It's strange being part of a story you never auditioned for, watching from the outside while the public decides what your role should be. The line sent a ripple of silence through the studio. Even the host, normally fluent in deflection, faltered. Caitriona reached out, hesitating, and lightly touched her own hand as though to restrain herself from reaching for Dakota's. For the first time, she looked unsure, not as an actress, but as a woman caught in a web of truth, emotion, and fame's merciless glare. That night, in a quiet hotel room in Montreal, Sam sat at a desk strewn with unfinished scripts and half-drunk tea, penning a letter by hand, something he hadn't done since university. His handwriting was uneven, his words unfiltered. "Dakota," he began, "I'm sorry for the way everything looks, and for making you stand before the world in this way. I never meant to hurt you. I love you, not in the way the cameras love a moment, but in the quiet, unseen spaces where we've shared real life. But I see now how my silence, my comfort with the familiar, created shadows I didn't intend. I didn't choose Caitriona, but I also didn't do enough to show you that I chose you. If you need me to go, I will. But if you ever give me another chance, I'll never let confusion steal what we built." He folded the letter carefully, stared at it for a long time, then placed it in the drawer instead of sending it. The next morning, while the tabloids speculated about who won the televised confrontation, Dakota Johnson made her own decision. She called her manager, voice calm and final. "I'm putting the new project on hold," she said. Her manager's voice broke through the receiver in disbelief. "Dakota, it's Greta Gerwig's film. This could redefine your career." But Dakota only replied, "I need space. I need time to remember who I am."